Hi there, and thank you so much for joining Donately's webinar. Today's topic is donor segmentation, and I am so excited to have you join us for this discussion because we are going to cover 3 expert tips on how to make this process boost your own individual fundraising efforts. If we haven't met already, my name is Sarah and I lead customer success here at Donately. When I'm not putting together webinars, I can be found in the Donately chat or by email if you're ever looking for support or guidance regarding all facets of online giving and fundraising. If after the webinar you have additional questions that aren't answered about this or anything else, I encourage you to reach out to me and we will connect one-on-one further. In looking at today's agenda for the webinar, I really want to be considerate of everyone's time who is joining us live. So to keep this discussion under 20 minutes, or at least under 30, we will be briefly first highlighting what donor segmentation is for those of you who may be new to the process. And then we'll talk through the most popular groupings or segments nonprofits are using today to better connect with their donors. And we'll wrap up the discussion by sharing best practices for strategic segmentation with examples. Any questions along the way, feel free to add them into the chat. And if they aren't discussed by the end of the webinar, I'll be sure to connect with you afterward to get you an answer. So let's get started. What exactly is donor segmentation? Well, it is quite simply the process of organizing your donors into different groupings by shared qualities or metadata, and then using these group lists strategically for optimizing your outreach efforts. That in itself seems complicated, but it is very simple once you see that you might already be doing it in some way, shape, or form. And it brings me to what donor segmentation fundraising is, because that involves adjusting your fundraising efforts based on the information that's unveiled through these segments. Segmenting your donors is important because it allows you to target outreach to the specific audiences most likely to take action. In other words, it helps you communicate and fundraise more efficiently. With 70% of donors who expect personalized communication, smart segmentation can save your organization time, money, and just team bandwidth while still boosting your fundraising returns. So whether you are starting from scratch with donor segmentation or you're looking for fresh ways to go about it and incorporate it into your fundraising, the next 3 tips will set you up for success from the very beginning. So tip number 1 is assign meaningful segments. First and foremost, you need to decide what segments are meaningful to your organization's fundraising goals and strategies. While there are many different kinds of segments that nonprofits recognize, your team or you will have to decide which segments are important to your organization's specific strategy. That's because using segments allows you to nurture your donors through more personalized outreach, and it in turn increases their reason for giving. Many organizations do segment their donors in a few different ways. So it's usually either by donation, like the type of donation they give. It could also be through networking, flags, and demographic markers. So looking at the donor type, you may decide to segment donation ranges and frequencies. This could be shown in a way where you might have a list of all donors that have only given under $10 when they donate. Reaching out to that list of small dollar donors about a small dollar appeal, such as a $2 Tuesday or $5 Friday, or some type of small gift amount, it will increase their willingness and wanting to act because you are already appealing to the type of gift that they are used to giving. You could also think about segmenting donors by their frequency. So you may have annual donors who donate on their birthday or someone else's birthday. And so reaching out to them and being part of a birthday club, you could always entice them about wanting to join a monthly giving program instead. You can highlight how the impact differs from annual to monthly giving, and it can be really targeted to that group. In looking at the different demographic markers, think about how demographics are meaningful to your organization. A great example I can give is, are you an organization that is starting to host in-person events more? If so, then you may want to segment by city or the local area, because then it allows you to have a list of local donors that you can keep up to date with goings-ons or events you're going to be at all in that local area that might not appeal to a donor you have potentially in a different country. Also, segmenting for networking opportunities is another great way to assign a meaningful segment. And we'll touch a little bit more on this example on another slide, but you may decide that learning where your donors work is important because you can then take advantage of corporate giving opportunities. And with that list, you can share helpful information to donors specifically about having their place of employment match their donation, and the process of it, how to set it up, making it sound easy, all of that stuff you can target to those donors specifically versus maybe getting kicked to spam by someone who receives that appeal and finds it irrelevant. So now, after talking about assigning these meaningful segments, we want to look at how to create strategies for those segments. So now, once you've created those different donor segments, you want to create a plan of action for how that data might be implemented. Creating strategies for these segments helps your team understand the plan of action for what to do when you begin collecting more targeted donor information. For example, your team could plan to track donation form completion rates and find out among different demographics to see which versions of forms speak to those donors, what information is still being brushed over or not included, or do you even need to add required fields for certain into your donation form for certain data points that you want to be sure you're always collecting. You can also monitor the age demographics of your supporters, and you can look at who's sharing your posts and campaigns across various social media platforms, and then use that to outreach through those platforms to those specific demographics. Another way is to analyze the wealth breakdown of individuals who support different fundraising events to understand their giving habits a little bit better based on the specific cause or appeal. So if you have donors that are frequently giving to your annual appeal that might touch on a very specific need in your cause, it might make sense to have other micro campaigns throughout the year that also target that same cause and need, because it's shown through your breakdown of how donors are supporting you that maybe a specific cause really appeals to them. So you want to make sure that that cause is being highlighted frequently to, again, increase their desire to want to donate. Determining a reference point of whether or not your data collection was implemented effectively and those relevant questions you wanted answered through the donor data is available, it's really imperative to analyze overall engagement strategy. And in general, engagement should never be a one-size-fits-all strategy when it comes to fundraising, because it's all about making lasting connections to your donors. That being said, by tracking metrics of various segments, it will help you learn what type of language entices different audiences, how they engage back with excitement for your cause, or if they feel and you're seeing through open rates in emails or likes on social media, if they're just feeling like another contact on your long, broad outreach list. And finally, after creating and assigning segments, utilizing strategies, our final tip is how to leverage donor segmentation for smarter giving. Now, perfecting your fundraising strategy is always a top priority because you want to know that your efforts aren't going to waste when you're likely already working with a limited budget, smaller team, and just short bandwidth behind the scenes. There are many ways that smart segmentation can help to strengthen your fundraising efforts over time. And here are just a few strategies or best practices that I want you to take away from this discussion. First one is collect key donor data every time a donation occurs. It's the easiest and most important time to collect donor data to help you build these segments out is doing it when you're asking donor questions on their donation form. It can help you to determine their demographics and characteristics right there when they're donating. This can be done adding custom fields into your Donately donation form. You can also do this outside of Donately by creating a custom survey that you email to all of your donors, asking questions that you want to learn more about them and their donating habits. And you can then sort that data into segments that way. Another idea is creating corporate giving lists, kind of going back to networking. Finding out where your donors are employed is just the first step in opening the door to receiving corporate matched gifts and donations. Corporate gifts and corporate matching is actually one of the least utilized fundraising dollars that nonprofits gain. And it's because many donors don't even understand or realize, I guess is the right word, that their employer does match donations. So as you're collecting donor employment information, you can kind of sort or flag them by the type of corporate eligibility that they may have in terms of matching gifts. And depending on how you currently manage your corporate giving, this can be done in an automatic fashion or even a manual process by searching databases like Double the Donation. And again, since most donors aren't aware that their employers may match their donations, by collecting employment information and segmenting these donors into a specific list, you can share how easy it is for donors to connect with their employers about having matching gifts sent to your organization, thus doubling the funds received through that specific list segment. And finally, another way to leverage donor segmentation is by tracking and pinpointing giving patterns among the donor segments that you've already set up. So another way segmentation can improve your fundraising strategy is by tracking what kinds of fundraising opportunities inspire different groups of donors. Look at which campaigns, giving appeals, or even forms of communication receive the most donor engagement, and then by demographic. This way, your team can focus on offering similar opportunities or communication styles that will resonate with these specific segments going forward. And not to confuse you, but to that point, I also want to make sure that you are at least aware, take into account, that donors in active segments, there may be some who behave outside of their predicted segmented list. This could be, an example might be that you've grouped donors that primarily or always have mailed in a check or send cash to your organization. And those donors might have been subgroups even further to be in an older age bracket, since that demographic tends to prefer not necessarily using online giving. However, that is changing. And so if you have older donors who prefer to donate on social media versus mailing a check, or small dollar donors who occasionally make a large generous gift, these donors shouldn't ever be thought as anomalies in your list, and instead they should be flagged or sub-segmented even further so that you can offer tailored fundraising opportunities that is unique to their needs and their giving history, instead of always just focusing on that larger, more predictable segments. Again, it is about wanting to connect more to your donors and have them feel that personalized outreach to encourage them to give more. So now that I've covered the importance of donor segmentation and discussed those expert tips for getting started and finding success, I wanted to share a few examples of segments that are most often used by successful nonprofits. So let's start with the donation-based segment style that's very analytical. It really takes defining 3 core areas: the recency, so the number of days since each donor's most recent gift; the frequency, or number of gifts given over a set amount of time; and then the average gift size over that same set amount of time. By analyzing the values of each of these for each of your donors, you can then simplify this data into tiered groups that can easily be labeled as your best donors, your ideal customer profile, new high-value donors, low-value but loyal donors, lapsed high-value donors, and engaged but lapsed donors. These are all great ways to track and understand how to make your outreach appeal to each different type of donor that you currently have. Now, if you don't have the time to create more formal analytical segments, there are other ways to segment donors that allow more targeted and personalized outreach using other donor identifiers to increase giving. And I've put 2 donor-based examples here, one focusing on personal identifiers and the other on donor acquisition. So when looking at personal identifiers or personal values and interests, think about how myself, you could probably think of 5 to 8, maybe even 10 traits or values or segments in which we strongly identify. It could be gender, race, age, communication style, education, location, hobbies, charitable interests, being a volunteer, all of those type of things. The list could go on. I recommend conducting donor surveys to find out this information, because you'll discover identifiers with a survey, but using a survey, you can actually go one step further and ask your donors to rank their core identifiers so that you can then segment that list or each of those lists more thoughtfully and strategically by their answers. Donors will give more when you connect your cause to something about them in which they strongly identify. They don't have to support your cause just because they identify as a donor. The goal is always to create a value for value exchange. So that personalization that you can give to them through strategic outreach due to segments offers them that value that for them they want to exchange their value of giving a gift. Looking at where donors are acquired from, and I'm not talking about just general demographics, but really understanding how donors have found you to make a donation. Was it on your website, social media, in-person networking, peer-to-peer fundraiser, direct mail, word of mouth, starting as a volunteer or advocate, and again, so much more. All of these groupings help pinpoint specific avenues of communication that work and how to tailor that messaging in the future, paying attention to that how, when, and where. Now, as we wrap up, I wanted to leave a few final takeaways or food for thought of important things that I wanted to just make sure that I touched on if I didn't dive too much into it earlier in the presentation. But the first one is there is no right or wrong way to segment your list. It really is just what will work best for impacting your fundraising goals. just because one organization uses certain segments, that does not mean that it's going to be successful for you. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to what is going to impact your fundraising goals and not paying attention to what everyone else is doing, because again, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Also, you want to make sure to regularly revisit your list segments to analyze their effectiveness, and that might make you reestablish if they should be segmented even further or resegmented into a different list. Things are always changing. Donors' habits are always changing. Your outreach efforts are always changing. So you want to make sure to regularly revisit your segments to make sure they are aligning with your current efforts. You also want to switch up your communication styles. Yes, certain demographics may have preferred outreach styles, but switching things up allows donors to switch things up as well. Will it always be successful? No, but it at least encourages and showcases to donors other ways to support your organization, and maybe they enjoy supporting you in that way, and you can then add them to a different segmented list through that. And finally, engagement strategy is the foundation of all strategic efforts, and this includes fundraising and stewardship strategy. You want to make sure that you're collecting data purposefully to maximize all of these efforts in everything that you do. So those are some of my final takeaways that I hope you enjoy and take from along with the rest of this presentation. I want to thank you so much for your time today and joining us. If you need any additional support on this topic or something else, please reach out to myself or the rest of our customer success team from your dashboard's chat box, or by emailing us directly at support@donate.ly anytime. Know that our team is always here to help however we can. So thank you again, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.